Welcome to Power Hour, where the editors of Powersports Business interview the movers and shakers of the powersports industry. Hi, everybody. It's Brendan with Powersports Business, and today we're here with two special guests, Courtney Bernhard, because I want to make sure I say that right. Courtney Bernhard of Performance Brokerage Services. She's a partner there, and George Chaconas is a senior partner with Performance Brokerage Services. And you guys are out of where today? Are you in Florida? Where are you? Where?
Yeah, we're in our southeast office in Tampa, Florida. Yes.
Okay. Nice. Very nice. So,
It's a beautiful
yeah,
day.
we're no hurricanes on the horizon there. You guys are pretty clear.
We're still recovering.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about the hurricane stuff was how disruptive those two hurricanes kind of right in a row were with kind of the economy and everything. It just sort of, they said that even had a blip on some of the job data that they had for the last quarter. But well, we'll get right into it here. I know I can go off on side notes and tangents here, but George, tell me your background a little bit. I mean, you've been doing this for a while, right? How do you get into buying, selling and facilitating, I guess, more of these buy sell deals in power sports specifically?
Well, that's why my title's senior partner, because I've been doing this a long time. Not that I'm a senior citizen, it's just my experience, hopefully. But I got into brokering businesses back when I got divorced. I wanted to was looking actually to buy a business, and I was with a business broker, and I said, "Wow, I can do this." So I started just selling small businesses, and then morphed into a childhood friend of mine asked me if I could help his friend up in Washington Metropolitan DC area where I grew up to help him buy a car store. So I helped him buy a car dealership, franchise car dealership, and found the firm that kind of specialized in that and joined them in 2004. So I've been with my partners out of our corporate office in Irvine, Orange County, California since 2004. So over 20, almost 21 years relationship.
Right.
And they really started selling, general brokerage, and then got into specialty and specialists in the automotive. And then they had done, one Harley Davidson dealership before I joined, and I saw a great opportunity and just started networking through, really going to conferences when Harley Davidson would have 2 dealer meetings a year, which was so fun and great people and great experience. But also Bruce Rossmeyer kind of was my mentor because I lived in Florida. I went up and met with Bruce and Jeff Cheek, and Bruce really was helpful in me kind of launching the Southeast National Power Sports Division. So been doing it ever since.
Wow. And I'm sure you've seen, quite a few changes. I think in that before that, I look at that mid 2000s as kind of a high point especially for Harley stores. I know some guys that got out of it, they're like, yeah, they sold, because things have, we've kind of ebbed and flowed, but, these stores still have quite a bit of value to them. But the landscape, a lot of stuff is changing. What do you see, Courtney? Tell me a little bit before we go more with George, because I don't want to dive into that, but I want to know a little bit about Courtney's background. You've been with Performance Brokerage for what, 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah, just coming up on 5 years. Been with the firm. My background is title, escrow, real estate, and insurance. So I grew up in Las Vegas. I had been flipping real estate with a national investor, relocated to Florida, was doing real estate investing and flipping here, and just decided it wasn't something that I necessarily enjoyed anymore. And so decided to look at something new and answered an ad on Indeed for a job opportunity that kind of sounded too good to be true.
It is. That's a great
and interviewed and had absolutely no idea that and I admit this, Candidly. I didn't even know that automotive dealerships specifically at the time, were even owned by individuals. I just thought they were all, corporate related.
Corporate, yeah.
I learned, amongst other things, that how bad of a car buyer I have been over the years,
Yeah.
by learning a lot of the background of this.
Right.
So that's one mistake I do not make anymore. So yeah, a lot of my experience gave me a lot of good nuts and bolts, and it was just applying it and learning the lingo and everything else for automotive is kind of where I started, and Harley Davidson, and then really growing the power sports side of it and finding my love within the power sports and the Harley side, really. So
Were you a rider before? Did you ride before you started selling, or did this and did this kind of ignite your passion to ride and do?
So I would say no, I don't. I grew up around it. I mean, being in Vegas, right? Like all my guy friends, rode dirt bikes, and there was a lot of riding areas, the dunes and stuff out there. And so I was fortunate to have guys to do that kind of stuff. But I talked to my dealers a lot about this, and kind of the female side, or the female perspective is, when you don't have men around you and you're not used to this, there's really a barrier of entry to riding, right? Because it's not just the vehicle, it's learning, how to trailer it, and, all the other stuff that comes along with it.
Oh yeah.
I also had my daughter young, and I think, when I became a mom, all that, extracurricular dangerous activity went out the window. So no, and honestly, time, there's just not a lot of time for that stuff right now. So I enjoy visiting dealerships, talking to dealers, but as far as
I think
riding,
you've been on the back of a couple.
I've been on.
Oh yeah. Well,
I've been on the
pictures.
back, but I'm a control freak too, so I don't necessarily like having somebody else have control of the vehicle.
I hear you. I'm the worst backseat driver, and it just is. Yeah, I usually like to drive everywhere, but with your background, it seems like real estate and in a way, selling a dealership, there's real estate involved. You have to know all that stuff about the insurance and all the titling and different things. So, all that kind of wrapped in. And then on top of that, there's other value in dealing with, I can't even imagine. So you probably have to deal with like the OEMs a little bit, who, they have to kind of approve the new buyer, right? Is that how that generally works? And
it's there's there's so many components that go into what we do. It's it's very easy for somebody to say, oh, you're just the broker, oh, you're just that. But what I've learned and what I've heard recently, especially, and what we've gone through with some closings, it almost feels like, oh, it's the same old thing, every deal, it kind of follows the same path, right? But it never fails. There's always something that will come up that we learn. And we've done that. We've had some learning lessons of things that just we never thought. And, so I think, and especially the market that we're in now, and we'll probably go into a little bit more with so many sellers coming, and, also a lot of buyers. I think there's this thing where, you feel if you don't use a broker, you're going to get a better deal. And I think,
like you're going to save the expense, and I can do it myself. And then,
and you know what? And that may work for a very small group. Very small group is going to be able to handle that transaction.
Yeah, but both of our clients have never been through selling their business. So, these so-called sophisticated consolidators they do take advantage of these smaller family-owned and operated Harley Davidson or power sports dealerships. So that's the value that we bring as part of the value that we bring to help protect them and maximize their value through our process.
Yeah. A lot of dealers just don't understand, everybody gets so wrapped up in the goodwill number, right? Which we talk about, the art and the science. What really is that number? But there's so many other things that go in line after the goodwill that people don't think about. And I think there are some people that are so ready, and maybe even to the point of desperation of selling, that if somebody came in and gave them a number, they would gladly just, throw their hands up and walk away with that. And that's really unfortunate, because they've put, so much time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears into these dealerships, that they should be compensated fairly for what they have. And I think
Right.
we are seeing some predatory type situations, which are unfortunate, because there are some deals that probably do not make sense for us to take, and we will tell them that. But we will also gladly give them as much information as we can and referrals as we can
Yeah.
to help guide them in the sale. Maybe it's just one franchise they're needing to sell, or, it's such a small opportunity that it doesn't make sense. And we probably do not have the buyer because it's probably somebody right in their backyard that we may never have contact with, but we will gladly help them and educate them the best
Yeah.
that we can. So we're not just, we're not here just to make our commission. Yes, obviously that's what we do. It is our living, but we also have so many other ways that we can help people aside from just being the broker, which I think, really there's people out there trying to just give us a bad stigma that I've seen posted recently. And it's like, well, didn't you just tell me a couple weeks ago that you get a better deal without using a broker? Yet now you're advertising that you're doing the very same thing.
Yeah. Right. That they're going to get. Yeah. No. And I do think that there's so many pitfalls and things to look, not that it's all somebody's like, but there's so many things to look at that as the business owner trying to sell it to somebody that comes, you could easily not know all those things and be taken advantage of, or you're just gonna end up giving yourself a worse deal or more headache than it's worth. So what's their time and all that worth? I think it's seems to make sense that having a broker to help out with. Now, you guys also do a lot of deals where you're on both sides. You're working the seller and the buyer, and I know in real estate they have that too. And there probably has to be a lot of trust and communication between you guys and the buyer and seller and all that, how that works.
Just to clarify, so we typically are engaged by the client, the seller, but probably 50% of our practice is also just representing buyers, going out and helping them make acquisitions. So we would not get paid from the seller, strictly from the buyer. So we don't co-broke. We're kind of against that because we just feel like.
So you don't, not necessarily like doing both broker and or buyer and seller. I know in real estate there's we've had some deals like that but
no, we don't. We don't do that. So we want to have a relationship with either the buyer or seller, and represent them, and we tell the seller or buyer that we refer them to qualified professionals that specialize in the power sports industry, whether it's a lawyer, CPA, real estate appraiser, environmental, 20.
All of it.
We have a vendor list of all the vendors. All the professionals that we work with, because we surround ourselves with people that have experience, and we tell that to the buyer and seller, because look, if not, it's very complicated and complex. These transactions aren't a simple, business. There's a lot that goes into just the process of getting one of these successfully closed.
I feel like we're a surgeon, right? You don't go under the knife without your surgeon having a qualified anesthesiologist, their surgery techs,
right?
Like all of that, right? So yeah, we are kind of the nucleus, but we know, and we have, our toolbox of our industry professionals that we, use to help get through, because there are, especially with the metric side. Harley Davidson, not so much, it's the one OEM, but when you're talking about working in these metric stores and you have all these different OEMs.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of hand holding and.
Right. Just like Logan.
Would you say the metrics are harder to sell and deal with than Harley, just because of that issue, because there are so many of them, or are they?
I think that's kind of a two-pronged question. Harder to sell only because there's so many lines. So working within so many lines and approvals just through dealer development, flooring, all of that can be difficult. sometimes they're more easily approved by the buyers that we have in the market because Harley Davidson has very strict
Oh yeah.
approval guidelines. So they each come with their own challenges.
What would you say now is going, it seems like obviously when we talked in 24, things were kind of slowing down, but it still seems like there's a lot of people selling. I don't know if there's as many people buying or they're more just large groups, auto groups. I mean, we're seeing a lot more automotive guys get in, but maybe there's a reason for it because they can, just like Teddy Morse, hey, he loves Harley stores, but he can add that to his portfolio of the automotive stuff, and it kind of builds the whole brand. What are you guys seeing out there?
It's funny you mentioned Ed Morse Automotive and Power Sports and Harley Davidson Group. I was invited to their annual Cash Bash event where they fly in all the employees from all across the country, have a big celebration. The theme this Saturday night in Hollywood, Florida, at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino was Elvis Presley. It was awesome. They had
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he flew in the leading Elvis impersonator from Vegas. Great event. We love Teddy and his team and helping them buy and multiple Harley Davidson and Power Sports dealerships and continue to help them grow. But what we're seeing since we last spoke at, I think, AIM Expo is,
yeah.
we're seeing more sellers come to the market, and the buyers have been kind of on the sidelines. But now we're seeing more buyers, current dealers, or a lot of our clients that sold out are entering back or want to come back into the market because they feel valuations have come down from the peak when they sold. So, a lot of it's just timing and luck since, and when I started, I had to go through the, 9/11, then the Great Recession, and then COVID. Things are normalizing, and it's been a challenge to really value these dealerships because COVID numbers were just out off the roof.
Oh
So
yeah.
so it's really been difficult to value dealerships. And then also with Harley Davidson, you had the fuel facility issue, which was very challenging to negotiate through, where, buyers were taking advantage of what the motor company was saying could cost per square foot to re-image or relocate their facilities, which put a huge challenge on valuations and cash
Right.
flow and the cost of capital. So that's been, fortunately, I think, I mean, there are some dealerships that need to be reimaged, but just generally it's kind of been put on the sidelines. So maybe just some signage and some paint now will help
And when you
satisfy the
say
motor company.
re-imaged, is that like relocated or remodeled, all of that? What is that?
Specific reimaging just means reimaging the exterior and interior.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Relocation means you're having to relocate it. Rumble On just announced their third quarter earnings, and they talked
Yeah,
about them buying a Harley store in New England that's going to have to be relocated. And, it's just a smaller, it's a good market. It's just, it's in a
that's going to
bad
cost a
area.
lot, right? I mean, to
Exactly.
relocate is not that's not an easy, you may be buying the territory, but then you're just basically starting out. You got to rebuild and buy a bigger area, hire all the architects and do all that, right?
It's expensive today, but so that's what we're kind of seeing, a shift. Now things are kind of normalizing. But
Yeah,
I still
okay.
think we're going to have continued sellers raise their hand because they're aging without a succession plan. And we talk about that so much, how important it is to prepare for an exit at least a year or two out. And a lot of our clients do listen to us, but a lot of them wait till it's too late. And then, that's why you're seeing a lot of these closures across
Right.
the country,
They don't
mostly with
have a
Harley
plan,
Davidson.
or they don't have one of their kids to hand it down to, or they don't have anything in place there, or the kid maybe doesn't want it,
It's a
doesn't
lot
want to
of
be
work.
in the business.
It's not easy. Any thoughts, Courtney, to add to as far as what you're seeing?
Well, I want to back up to, I think we got a little off topic when you're saying, the automotive side coming
Yeah.
in and buying some of these dealerships. I think it's a touchy subject with some dealers who are kind of against the corporate conglomerate coming in and changing the landscape and the culture of the dealership. However, I also feel that a lot of these OEMs have put such massive pressure on these dealers, whether it's facility upgrades or signage and displays. I mean, you think about, you have 6, 7 franchises under one rooftop, and they're all fighting for floor space and new displays and flooring, and their units are bigger, and all this kind of stuff. It's, these are mom and pop. These are people that have just, they've been doing what they've been doing so well for so long, and now, it's not working. They don't have the money to put in to keep up with what their manufacturers
if they
are
didn't do
requiring.
well through COVID, if they didn't stock anything away through COVID, they're probably really on the ropes right now.
Well, and I
That's
think
true.
the synergies that the automotive space brings in, it's no secret that power sports industry is way behind automotive. And so I think we're starting to see some of these, automotive guys come in and really put in the processes and procedures that need to be put in place for these dealerships to survive. And one of the biggest places is just their internet presence, the leads, coming in. So many dealers just have not given, much thought or care to this. And now all of a sudden you're seeing everybody talking about lead generation and lead time, and, the door swings aren't happening. And, automotive
it's not door
knows that
swings
side.
anymore. It's internet leads. It's that
Right.
that lead
Digital.
generation you got to get. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think the car guys, and because they deal with it more, obviously automotive, motorcycles, you're selling fun, it's more of it's a luxury item, but there's some premium car dealers that kind of live in that space because they are premium, high level, but they've kind of gotten down to the science a lot more of selling and being a dealership,
Right.
whereas like I think we have a lot of mom and pops here that have done things the same way for so long and have worked for so long, but like you said, now they're kind of not working as well.
Right. And I think that the tail end of what you were talking about with the COVID numbers and, dealers making a ton of money, and, some of that they rolled into other acquisitions, which, maybe they feel now, they pay too high of a price, or it's not maybe in an area that they really want to be. So, there's some thought as to, raising their hands and getting out, as quickly as they came in, which poses some challenges, kind of like units that were bought
Sure.
during COVID that are now underwater.
Well, I was kind of curious about that because some of these guys that maybe came in and paid a premium price during COVID, are they now, back, wanting to get out because they're not seeing that return? But, I look at that as some of those guys maybe aren't in it for the long term. They wanted that quick return. And I don't know if this is the kind of industry where you get that,
I think
You
we have
get-
a handful that we're
Yeah.
working with right now that came into it and just thought, oh,
They'll give it a try.
yeah, I thought this was
You
a
know.
good idea. Didn't realize all the
It's a lot of work.
the anxiety, the ups and the downs that come along with owning a dealership.
Right.
Especially in places that are more seasonal.
Yeah,
It can
dealing
be
with seasonality, as we were speaking earlier, dealing with seasonality is something that I think if you're a car dealer or maybe in some other business, you may not understand how that works because, oh, this is normal. You mean not having anybody here, and you have to scale your dealership during certain times to be able to, obviously be ready to go when it gets busy, but you can't have like 10 sales guys on the floor in the wintertime usually,
right.
you may scale up your service, but so you think it's definitely more of a seller's environment right now, you think, George?
Well, I think it's just more sellers, but more buyers are coming back into the market because I think a lot of people, buyers and sellers, were waiting for the presidential election and the elections in general to be done and over with. So the next day
Sure.
after the election, we got a significant amount of calls from both sellers and buyers. Now at least have some direction and understand where we're going to go.
Where
far
we're
as
going a
policy.
little more, yeah.
So that's exciting. I mean, I was just at a conference, an M&A conference in Miami, and Kevin O'Leary was the keynote speaker from the
Oh
Shark
yeah.
Tank.
Yeah,
It was pretty awesome, and he's very optimistic and bullish about the economy, capitalism, entrepreneurship, rates coming down, the cost of capital to make these acquisitions. So he was very excited, more so than his counterpart on the Shark Tank. That
Mark
he
Cuban.
don't. Yeah, how did you know? They don't. It's funny.
Well, they're polar opposites of their political ideologies, I would say. But, I mean, everyone, not to say one side's right and one side's wrong. I think people want some kind of stability. We want to know where it's going. And I think the problem with election years, no matter who, it's like, what's going to happen? And if the two sides are so vastly different, you're kind of like on the fence of, well, if it goes this way, we got to do all this. But if it goes this way, we got to do, so knowing is, 90% of it.
Well, we're excited, and we very optimistic and bullish for 2025 with buy sells in the power sports industry with all the franchises. I think, we're hoping that there's some changes at the motor company to help, stabilize the future of that.
Seems
So
like
that's
they've got some, and what I've been reading about it, they're trying to make up with a lot of dealers and try to rebuild some of those the sore spots. But if Harley's coming down in these hard times saying you need to redo all this and spend all this money, where they have to show how that's actually going to make a change in the in the revenue they're going to bring in. So
right. And
Well, I feel like
what about the
they're-
new product coming out?
yeah, they're
2025?
they're retracting, I think, a bit on their facility upgrades now from their last form that they had was in the last 2 months,
Yeah.
a month ago. I was talking to a dealer. So every dealer I talk to, I'm like, well, what are your thoughts? Are you optimistic? So we've heard a lot of negative in the last 2 years, which is very
Yeah.
hard, like because we're still selling these and there still are buyers that are still passionate, diehard passionate about the brand and know that this too shall pass. But the best way that he summed it up to me was that the facility upgrades are now being dangled as a carrot as opposed to being a stick. And I thought that's a great way to sum up,
Analogy,
yeah,
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah,
So
you can't beat somebody into submission to make, but you need to, if you're going to say out there, you need to do this, you need to show why it needs to be done and lay out the plan as to like why that's going to make a difference. And, I do think it's the landscape has changed a lot, but Harley's that brand alone, I mean, they could almost exist without selling new bikes, without, there's so many of them out on the road anyway. There's so many, that brand alone, just you can sell merch off of it. I do think that they will, they may just be that premium brand now. I don't know if they've kind of put them, but that, that's going off on a little bit of a tangent because I can do that a lot of times. But I do think that Harley will come back around and have value. It's just what's going to be that new norm. And I think they're maybe trying to get, I feel like those publicly traded companies end up in trying to do too many things to please their stockholders,
Yeah, and that's true. But, people, dealers, riders, enthusiasts want to be buyers of these franchises, see all these closures. Well, most of these closures are closed for a reason. It's either
Yeah.
their lease was up or they didn't want to reinvest in the facility, or they're aging out, they're just smaller markets. So there's a reason, I mean, that New York City Harley-Davidson closed because it's too expensive. Same with San Francisco.
Right.
Same with Los Angeles. These are three major metropolitan markets that Harley-Davidson no longer is going to have a presence. But there are dealers, surrounding dealers. It's just too expensive to operate in these major metropolitan markets. So it's
The
not
real
that
estate
Harley's going
alone.
away.
the problem is and George and I were having this conversation the other day, it's the public perception. right? So, a lot of dealers close to do an annual physical inventory once a year, and they post on their, social media that they're closing. Well, people now see that, and the first thing they think about is the dealership's closing. They're just not
Yeah.
officially
That
announcing
they're
it yet.
shutting down.
Yeah, and you can follow all the comments underneath,
That's true.
that. And so it's tough because it's not, it's with
There's
all
some
these announcements and
disinformation
people
out
not,
there.
yeah, the misinformation behind a lot of these, it's also affecting the current dealer body who is just trying to stay afloat right now. So they're battling, those
Yeah.
comments and having to essentially prove that they're not, going
Yeah.
out of
That we're
business.
we're okay. We're still, yeah.
Right. Right. It's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah. No, I've seen that, but Harley, again, I think that some of the stores that they had didn't make sense. They probably had too many stores, too many dealers. I think they're maybe down to around 500 now. I think they were as high as maybe 800,
800. Yeah.
so 500 might be a better number, and to stay out of those high rent districts, I mean, obviously New York City, I mean, to have a bike, a big enough dealer there, it's gonna cost a fortune. So,
It's funny,
I
just and expanding on that is when I was in New York City not too long ago because I couldn't fly back to Florida because of the hurricanes. I was stuck in the city. So I drove the market and met with some dealers and noticed all these large, luxury automotive dealerships. And I found out, and I forgot, but those are also supported by the OEMs. They help with some of the expenses, like
okay.
Mercedes-Benz of
So they're
Manhattan,
subsidizing
BMW.
it a
Yeah,
little bit.
that's the word. Yeah. So I've told that to Harley for years, but they don't listen to me. I try.
And that's the thing. Like, if they want, maybe Harley or one of those stores, they need to have like just a little storefront that then
That's
it services out to a larger shop outside of that metropolitan
that's
area.
we've talked about that too. But so I'm we're we just sold recently very large multi-line power sports, been in the family for over almost 65 years. Logan Power
Yeah.
Sports and Hatfield. That was a pretty large transaction. We just closed a couple weeks ago on Carolina Coast and Beach House Harley Davidson in Wilmington, North Carolina to the Coles. Today we're closing officially on Cox Harley Davidson and Rock Hill, South Carolina, just 45 minutes from Charlotte with another dealer, Carson Baker, who we helped buy his other Harley Davidson dealership, and he's also a multi-line power sports dealer. So we're seeing activity that people that are in the business that are making money and love it are still, acquiring dealerships. So I think we're going to have a busy year. We've got one more closing year end in California, fortunately, which is I've never seen it so bad with the industry, the power sports industry, and profitability in California.
California is in rough
It's really,
shape, I know.
it's
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 another
really
because it's
sad.
become so expensive for everything to run everything out there, and all the
Yeah, it's
regulations, and
and
yeah,
politics and all that. So
yeah,
we're
and
hopeful.
fires.
The argument is with some big groups that I work with out there is that there's more riders than anywhere else in the country, and so that's the argument to make
Yeah,
it. They're still viable businesses, but it's hard to get people from outside of California to buy into California. It's easier to sell dealerships in the other, you know, 50
yeah,
some states. So
gotcha. Yeah, I would imagine California is a tough one and the number's going to be high. And from what I understand from dealers I've talked to out there, they're like, to come in as a new bit, you're a lot of the territories are already taken up, so you have to buy a deal, buy into one that's already existing, pretty
absolutely.
much, because you're most of those OEM lines are already they're already spoken for.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, guys, this has been great stuff. What do you see? So you think 25, you're bullish on 25, and is there a group or individuals you think that are on the gas right now as far as like investing in this market, and see, kind of what you guys see?
And then Courtney can, you know, share too, but I feel it's a great time to be a buyer. There's a lot of to be opportunistic and to make acquisitions by just having some of my old clients that have kind of sold out, thinking about coming back into the market. The first thing I tell them is, you're crazy, but it's hard to get it out of your blood. I mean, I've sold a lot of dealerships, and it's
That's
hard
what
to
they know how to
retire.
do.
Yeah, it's
You
hard to
know,
retire,
obviously.
and they can kind of control their own destiny, and they like the diversification and the return that they've gotten owning a dealership, as opposed to, you can only put so much money comfortably in the stock market or bond market, real estate. So it's just another asset that they love and enjoy. And I mean, it's just, I think it's going to keep the buy sell activity strong for next year.
And outside of car dealers, oh, well, go ahead, Courtney. I know you
Oh
were.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I think some of the larger groups, I think there's still some maybe pause, because they had a lot of growth through COVID. And I think they're still strategically looking on acquisitions, but I think they're also still continuing to hold out, feeling like they're gonna get a better deal as we
Right.
get
That's true. We
get further into the
Like the
winter, and
bottom's still not there yet. You know, the
sellers
buyer
are
wants the bottom.
sellers are
know.
more cash strapped and feeling the squeeze a bit more. And
But I would argue that we've plateaued. I think we're at the bottom of the valuations. In fact, I forgot
That's
to
what
mention,
I agree with that. I
we
think
just
that,
we just sold um, Motorcycles of Charlotte multi-line import dealership. He's got Mark Engel and his wife Gail have owned it for almost over 20 years. I've been
yeah.
courting them for 18 of those years, and we just sold it. They have two locations, also in Greensboro, North Carolina, to Sonic Automotive. So that's positive that a publicly traded company that already owns several Harley Davidson dealerships and powersports in the Houston market and the one up in Sturgis
Okay.
is still
That's right. They own
making
that one
acquisitions.
too.
So that we haven't made that announcement yet. I think Sonic probably did a press release. We haven't done ours yet. But
I'll have to look
it
for
was
it. Yeah.
pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was I mean, these multi-line European import stores have seemed always to be harder to sell than multi-line or Japanese, and definitely Harley Davidson. I think
Well, the
Indian right
European
now.
stuff too, like KTM, I know they're having a really, I mean, I don't know. It's not that they're necessarily as down here in the US, but they are down in the US, but they're being down in Europe quite a bit, that, that may be. But yeah, the European stuff is definitely a premium brand,
Yeah, we like it. I think it's sexy, but and talking real briefly about standalone Indian stores are very challenging right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know what
There are not
Polaris
many.
is going to do.
Are there many of those left? It seemed like a lot of them kind of, I know they wanted to go head to head with Harley like that with
Yeah.
standalone stores, but I don't think they've done,
No,
as well.
it's unfortunate. It's just not enough ridership and the expense again. That's why my argument to the CEO of Polaris would that, allow Indian to be part of a multi-line dealership, and they have allowed it in
Yeah.
certain markets. And I think you're going to see that more for them if they're going to survive.
Yeah. You ever see Harley being allowing a multi-line? I guess they allow a
Oh, that's a great question. So we are working through something confidentially that might allow that, but it's an expensive market. That's the only reason why. It's in
Okay,
a
yeah, that
major
makes sense.
metropolitan market, and
I
they
could
want
see in a
presence
metro.
there.
Yeah, maybe in a major market, where the expense is high and maybe there's got to be some room for exceptions, but maybe not across the board. Harley, you're just used to the Harley store, and then there's everybody else, all the metrics but well, hey guys, I
Thank
think we
you.
could continue on for a long time, but we'll save that for the next one. I know we'll see you guys at our conference in January. Probably see you at AIM Expo again too. So we'll get together and
Absolutely.
chat for sure. So
Absolutely. Thank you for
thanks
the
so much.
opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're welcome. Thank
Thanks,
you.
thank you
Brendan.
guys
We really
both.
enjoyed it. Have a
Yeah,
great day. Thank you.
you too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. If you like this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We also invite you to connect with us on powersportsbusiness.com.